this is a CR question. Now, try to use elimination here, all right? Generally in CR, when people start using selection, that's where they start going wrong. If you're using elimination, it'll be very straightforward. You'll be able to get the answer in less than 30 seconds. But if you're trying to find your way as to why the right one is right, it can take you a bit longer. Give it a shot. Let me know what you think would be the answer for this one. In terms of understanding, there isn't much here, but the rationale for why the right one is right and why the wrong one is wrong, I think the rationale can be a little confusing, but overall, the question isn't very complex. So, this particular question, so in a sample related question, you're trying to understand whether the sample that the author has taken into account to draw the conclusion is that sample representative or not representative. That's basically what you're looking at whenever there's a sample related question. So, for instance, if I were to meet, let's say, 10 marketing people in Delhi and call those 10 marketing people in Delhi to be aggressive, then you obviously can't say that all marketing people are aggressive because, again, the sample that you've taken into account might not be representative to kind of make that, to draw that sweeping generalized conclusion. So, be very clear about that. You got to be clear about whether the sample is representative or not. And here, that's exactly what's happening. Author talks about the hotels that he has visited, and just because the author has visited certain kinds of hotels, based on that, he can't make a sweeping conclusion about the buildings that would have existed before 1930 and after 1930. That is what you need to be able to spot. This pattern is really important. Can really save you a lot of time when you're trying to tackle these kinds of questions. So it says, I have visited hotels throughout the country and I've noticed that those built before 1930, the quality of the original carpentry work is generally superior to that in hotels built afterward. Clearly, look at the conclusion drawn by the author now. Clearly, carpenters working on hotels built before 1930 typically worked with more skill, care, and effort than carpenters who have worked on hotels built subsequently. Now, here the author is drawing the conclusion based on the hotels that he has visited. And the first question you must ask yourself is, are maybe the sample is biased, maybe the sample is not representative. So that's the question that you must be able to ask, and then have that as the answer in one of the options. So look at option A. Quality of original carpentry in hotels is generally far superior to the quality of original carpentry in other structures. This is completely out of scope. We are not at all concerned about the quality of original carpentry in structures such as houses and stores. B talks about how many guests can a hotel accommodate, as has no bearing on the quality of the hotel, right? I mean, accommodation has nothing to do with quality. We are concerned about the quality here overall. So definitely something that's outside the scope. C says the materials available to carpenters working before 1930 were not significantly different. Now, if the materials weren't significantly different, isn't that going to strengthen the argument? We are looking to weaken it. We are looking to cast a shadow on the conclusion, and C will essentially end up strengthening it. This is a 180-degree answer, exactly the opposite of what we're looking for. D says the better the quality of original carpentry in a building, the less likely that building is to fall into disuse and be demolished. Now, this right here is actually questioning the reliability of the sample. What you're saying is the better the quality, the less likely it is to fall into disuse. So, what is the corollary of this? The corollary of this is the inferior the quality, the more likely that building is to fall into disuse. So, you understand what happens with the buildings that have poor quality, right? Think about hotels built before 1930. And if we talk about the ones, let's say we talk about the overall structures. Let's say there are about 100 hotels that were built before 1930, and let's say 10 of them are of good quality. Now, what has happened because of passage of time is that the bad quality ones, so 90 were bad quality and 10 were good quality. Now, because of passage of time, these 90 bad quality ones have been demolished. If these 90 bad quality ones have been demolished, so when the author visits these hotels, he might just have the best of the hotels to consider, right? He might visit all of these 10 hotels and find them to be excellent. But what he or she would not have been able to understand is that these are the best of the lot. This is not a representative sample. It's kind of like saying where you meet only the meritorious students of a school, right? You meet only the meritorious students of the school and then say that, okay, their class average must be very high. But you haven't taken into account the sample at large. You're only focused on the best of the lot. So here, if before 1930 there were only 10 good quality ones and 90 bad quality ones, and because of the passage of time, the bad quality ones have got demolished, that will leave only the good quality ones out there. And if the author were to visit these hotels built before 1930 and find 10 on 10 on good quality, that doesn't necessarily mean that they basically are representative. This is not a representative sample. If it's not a representative sample, that will definitely weaken the argument. And by the way, if you could not really think of this logic, understand you could have simply held on to option D and looked at option E instead. And E is quite the opposite of what we're looking for. E says the average length of apprenticeship for carpenters has declined significantly. So if the average length of apprenticeship for carpenters has declined significantly, isn't that going to strengthen the argument? Isn't that giving you a reason as to why the carpenters working in hotels built before 1930, they worked with more skill, care, and effort because they were given the right kind of training. They were given the adequate length of training. And because the length of training has gone down, that is what apprenticeship means. That could be the reason why the ones that were built after 1930 weren't built with as much skill, care, and effort. So E is actually a 180-degree answer here, guys. Strengthens the argument, not weakens it. So D would come out to be your answer. So here's the takeaway. Whether you got this right or wrong, that's a different matter. What's important here is to understand the pattern. Last time we discussed number percentage, we discussed cause and effect, we discussed comparison, and today we're discussing sample. And once you're able to figure out the pattern behind the question, then the language of the question, even if it's intimidating, even if it's convoluted, you'll still be able to find your way and get the right answer, right? So yes, perfect, Ayush. Your streak of correct answers continues. So D is the answer for the second one. Let's do one question.